So, Avatar Fire and Ash is the third James Cameron Avatar movie, and we didn't have to wait as long for this one. And I think fans will probably appreciate that we didn't have to wait over a decade to get the next entry in the Avatar series. So, we got our third entry with Fire and Ash. And while the film, there is a lot of James Cameron's great tech, and his themes about environment versus technology, it's all still there. All the same stuff that you loved from the past two Avatar films are here, except there is one crucial element missing, though, and that element is something refreshing in the groundbreaking visual effects. And I think that's the main thing that carried me through with like the first two Avatar films, is what made me love them so much, is that these are worlds that where it felt like, it was something completely different. So the first time that we were on Pandora, we got to see the beautiful forest with all its different creatures, and the floating sky islands with all the giant flying creatures that, the Na'vi would have to attach their little, braids to and then connect with. That was kind of cool stuff. And they had them fighting mechs. That was great. And then, many years later, we got The Way of Water, in which, we explored, the water tribe of the Na'vi, and, how they interact with the sea life in there, which, that's James Cameron's penchant, is, loving the sea life stuff. So I get it. And it worked really well. I enjoyed exploring another corner of Pandora there. And the problem with Fire and Ash is that it doesn't really have any new place to go here on several fronts. Not just in terms of like story beats, because it's like pretty much like the same story and same themes, but visually and environmentally, it doesn't really go anywhere all that new. And I think a big problem with this is that it doesn't really feel like the characters are developing all that much past the sequel. They're not really going anywhere all that unique. Well, the thing is, the characters are going somewhere unique in the film, but they never quite get there. It always feels like their arcs are just kind of spinning with what was started in like the previous film and not really developing much in this movie, which is kind of weird. I get, it has this vibe of being like a bridge film where they're setting a lot of stuff up for another film, and so they're just kind of meandering and finding stuff to do for the characters until they can get to the next story, which is pretty aggravating. And I think it's really aggravating because there is some interesting areas to go here with these characters. Like, you have Jake, once again played by Sam Worthington. He's still concerned about defending the Na'vi tribes from the humans. He has a lot more insight, and the tribes are still not taking him seriously. And I think that, that's a good angle to explore. At the same time, you have his wife Neytiri, once again played by Zoe Saldana, who, after having lost a son in the previous film, she's grieving and finds her spirituality is waning. So she's losing her connection to Pandora. She doesn't really feel like life is worth living. She's kind of growing a little bit nihilistic and bitter about humans, which kind of complicates the fact that one of the children that they have is the adopted spider, who is a human living among the Na'vi. So she has to grapple with those feelings. A lot to explore there. But the thing is, there are too many other characters that they throw into the mix, which also have interesting character quirks, and they could have interesting arcs, but they're never fully explored. In particular, I thought there would be a lot more with their daughter, Kiri, their adopted daughter of Kiri, once again played by Sigourney Weaver, about her trying to come to terms with her lineage and how she is a bit of an outsider who can't do other things that the other Na'vi can do, that she has a seizures, so she can't connect to the planet as well as the others, which I thought that would kind of be an interesting angle. Okay, like, how does she go about fitting in? And I thought, okay, Spider also doesn't fit in as well, so there could be a little bit of an outsider story there. Could be. But we don't spend enough time there because we're darting to so many other little subplots here. Like, there's the other subplot with the other son of Loak, who basically goes on an entirely different quest to try to figure out how sea life has this kind of like honor code, and how there are like there's this mystery about how like certain sea creatures are banished from their certain clans. So again, another outsider story. We don't spend as much time with it, though. In fact, that character is almost entirely detached from most of the film throughout. So that, and you might be wondering, okay, if all of these plots are just put on the shelf, then what is given the most focus? And I think the one aspect that I think the film focuses on the most is the rivalry again between Jake and Colonel Miles, once again played by Stephen Lang. They still have the same feud that they had in the last film. Miles, he wants to get revenge on Jake for killing him the first time, and he also wants to reconnect with his son of Spider, so he's trying to rescue him away back from the Na'vi to kind of like raise him with his own. And that was pretty much the entire arc of the second film, and it's the entire arc of the third film as well. It's just this rivalry between them, and the overarching story is pretty much the same deal again. It's, the humans are trying to mine resources from Pandora, and not even like a different resource like the previous film. It's the same resource, just more of it this time around. Now, the one aspect of the film that does have the most originality is in the new villain they introduce, which is Varang, played by Una Chaplin, and she is a part of this volcanic clan of the Na'vi, and she has embraced this. She's embraced this worldview where she's not connected to the planet. She doesn't understand how, if the planet is living and you can connect with it, then why does it allow all these terrible things to happen, and would rather just burn it all down than try to live with it. Again, another interesting character arc that isn't fully divulged. So the film just kind of settles on Varang being this very stylish villain. And she does look really neat. I love the way that she has the her headdress and the paint on her body. I love the way that she moves, the way she kind of has this kind of like bobbing and weaving and this kind of like feral, seductive nature. I like that staging, and it makes her a good leader for her clan, who is also very bloodthirsty and feral. And I think the biggest problem, is when we actually go to their world, or they're part of Pandora, because that's the one aspect I love about the last film, The Way of Water, is that when we got to explore this water tribe, we got to see an entirely different environment and an entirely different ecosystem, a different architecture, different resources, just different everything. But what do we get when we go to the volcanic tribe? Well, we go to this desert of white ash and death and, smears of blood and skulls all around. And that's probably the most disheartening thing about the film, is that, the past two Avatar films always, they took us to somewhere new and different and exciting, that it was great to go into the theater and, watch this IMAX 3D just like blow our minds. And here we're going into territory that feels very familiar. Okay, yeah, a desolate desert of just death and ash and, skulls on pikes. It's like, I've seen all this before. It's not all that mesmerizing or even intimidating. And I think even James Cameron realizes this, because he doesn't even set the grand finale here, where there's supposed to be, the ordained big battle between the Na'vi and the humans. It's pretty much the same type of battle as the last film, with the addition of Varang and her volcanic tribe working alongside the humans. So you have Na'vi against Na'vi. A little bit of a civil war. And again, these are a lot of great aspects to explore, but for a film that runs well over 3 hours, like it's very close to 3.5 hours long, it never felt like there was enough time to either enjoy the world or explore more about the characters. And the problem with that is, it just, all these arcs and these interesting angles, they just kind of end up falling on these simplistic platitudes that just end up repeating themselves. So if you haven't even seen The Way of Water in a long time, and you don't remember it all that much, you won't have to. You will probably have deja vu when you watch this film. Be like, wait, I have seen this before. This is the same. It's not even just the same environment. It's the same story beats. Like the big battle, it pretty much goes through the same type of motions. Like, okay, here's the initial assault. Here's, all the mechs prepping. Here's where the wildlife fights back. Here's where the wildlife gets pushed back. And here's the big scene where Jake and Miles once again have their big showdown where they beat each other up. Same as before. They do try to mix it up a little bit with having them duke it out with shifting gravity, but it's, you just look at the environment and what's being staged here and what's at stake, and it just feels like more of the same. That's not really what I like so much about the Avatar films. I like the fact that I can get lost in these worlds, and I think Cameron gives us enough of that in his past two films that by the time we do get to the third act, with all the promised action and adventure and everything blowing up and giant mechs versus, flying sea life, and Jake working alongside the Na'vi, riding a beast and shooting at the opposition, all that stuff, it's not as fun this time around just because we don't have that element of being engrossed in this world. There are attempts in the film to showcase a little bit of something new with the Wind Trader tribe that they bring into the mix here. I love the vehicles that they use, the way they have these creatures that pull their ships up into the sky that kind of have like sails that look like giant membranes. I love the look of that, and I wish there was more of that. I wish there was something new to explore, but a lot of the locations in this film are just the same. It's like we go back to the Water Tribe, we see all the same stuff there. We even go back to the other rogue scientists. They're still off in the wilderness in the exact same location. The humans that are in their polluting, resource draining factory there, it still looks the same. So it's just, and I think that reveals the biggest problem with these films is that, it is kind of stating the same themes over and over again and kind of reducing its characters to very simplistic broad strokes. But a lot of that was forgivable just because the technology for creating this environment was mesmerizing because it was offering something new. And here with Fire and Ash, it just feels like it's the same stuff. It's like, yeah, this still looks good, but we were here in the last film. So it feels less like we're returning to this amazing world to find something new and different around the corner, and more just kind of like we're stumbling back into this world, like like the Na'vi is looking at us like, what did you lose your keys or something? What are you doing back so soon? So I get the feeling maybe it might be time to like let Avatar sit a little bit longer just so James Cameron can find something new to explore here, because he really doesn't, other than just, throwing a different flavor of Na'vi into the mix, which I will admit, Varang was pretty cool, but they don't do much with her beyond just, being attracted to Miles and how he has this power that she desperately wants to wield. So basically, it's basically Miles turns Varang on with flamethrowers. Because, like, Varang is all about, like, the fire and the ash. So, like, oh, here's this device that can spew fire. Isn't it great? So Miles gives that to her. And Varang, in probably the trippiest scene in the film, offers Miles, like, the most primo Pandora drugs. And I thought I would love this scene a lot more just because, it's the Na'vi, like, it's the Na'vi losing their mind while taking drugs, and it is pretty trippy. I will admit, it was pretty neat to see it. But it didn't go far enough. Like everything else in this film, it never felt like all the cool stuff that you could do with this film. It never takes advantage of it. Even the greedy resource hog from the last film is back again. Like, and I thought he was dead. It's like, oh, okay, I guess he's back. I guess none of the villains stay dead. I guess they just come back. Like, it really did feel like a TV show where just like, you're watching a skirmish between heroes and villains, and then, they'll shake their fists at each other and then they'll come back next week, or in this case, every few years. So James Cameron is usually really well known for his groundbreaking visuals. And, with the past two Avatar films, he did that. And with Fire and Ash, there's nothing all that new to explore here besides just more of the same. So if you want to return to Pandora, but you just want to go back and, relive the greatest hits of the last film, then sure, you'll probably like this movie. It still has its fun moments. It has some decent punchlines. It still looks neat for the few new additions that they provide for this film. But ultimately, I just felt like I just had deja vu. I felt like I was watching The Way of Water all over again, with only a few more stakes raised and not enough growth within any of the characters to make it feel like this was a very fulfilling film. It very much feels like a bridge film. So yeah, Fire and Ash is definitely the most disappointing film of the Avatar saga thus far.